welcome back to Tea Party with Ghosts. I'm Ash.
And I'm Ghost.
And what kind of tea you drinking this week, Ghost?
Is it Witch's Moon? Is that what it's called?
Witch's Moon or Witch's Brew?
Yeah.
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 We both got that this week.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a new one that a shop that we go to started selling.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. It's very seasonal.
Yeah, it has like clove and orange and I think she said sandalwood and jasmine, a couple other things in it. So, sorry for the 2-week hiatus we took.
We have worked about 200 plus hours since Thanksgiving and have not had a day off.
Yeah, so we took a couple weeks off.
Because, everyone keeps buying shit and we have to deliver it, so.
Yeah. We're delivery drivers.
And here's a PSA. Have your numbers on both sides of your mailbox and have your numbers on your house if you expect a delivery. Because if we misdelivered, it's not our fault.
Yeah. True. So before we dive into this week's topic, I would like to give a trigger warning. So anyone who is sensitive to talk of substance abuse, physical abuse, relationship, familial abuse, mentions of rape, sexual assault, and possible other
mental health issues.
Yeah, mental health issues and other violent topics will be discussed today. Not in detail, but they will be mentioned. So, just wanted to give a heads up and a trigger warning in case you want to skip today's episode. Oh, yeah, I guess so. I'm changing up what I'm going to be bringing to the table to this podcast. I think I'm going to mostly focus on hauntings around the world, like some big ones, small ones, local ones, just things like that, because I had trouble finding topics doing what I was doing. So.
And that's just what you're into right now, so.
Yeah, I'm really into like haunted stuff and ghost stuff, so that's what I want to cover. Because while I am a practicing witch and I do believe in all that, I'm also very skeptical of things, so. This week I'm talking about the case of Doris Bither. It's also known as the Entity Haunting, and a lot of you guys will know the movie that was made about it. Was it called The Entity? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not actually going to discuss the movie today or whatever. I'm just mostly focusing on the actual case. But you've seen The Entity, right?
Yeah, the movie itself was actually pretty good for it to be as old as it is.
Was it in like 1982 or something is when it came out?
I believe so, yeah.
I think it was in the early 80s.
And I can't think of her name right now, but the lady that actually, was casted to play Doris Bither played Cora, which is Regina's mother from Once Upon a Time.
Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was Barbara Hershey that played Doris Bither. She played Cora Mills in Once Upon a Time, so that's where I know her from.
I've got it split up into different sections. So we're first going to give a brief overview of the case. And I've pulled this first couple of sections from Wikipedia. And it seems to be pretty consistent with other sources that I've looked at. The Doris Bither case, also known as the Entity Haunting, was a 1974 investigation into alleged paranormal phenomena in Culver City, California, experienced by a woman named Doris Bither. She contacted parapsychologist Barry Taff in 1974 to relate alarming phenomena she experienced. With the assistance of Carrie Gaynor, Taff conducted a preliminary interview of Bither's paranormal claims. This interview revealed Bither had a history of physical and substance abuse along with a traumatic childhood. Investigators also found that Bither and her four children were living illegally in a condemned home that was in severe disrepair. Wikipedia is the only place that I could find that actually mentioned that they were living illegally in a home. So I just wanted to point that out, because I don't know how true that is, although later we'll talk about it and it doesn't seem too far-fetched. Bither alleged that she was attacked and raped by one or several invisible entities. More benign manifestations recounted by Bither included luminous, transparent human shapes and poltergeist events. The overview of the investigation. Taff and Gaynor visited the Culver City house for the first time on August 22nd, 1974, with repeated visits over a 10-week period. The investigators did not look into the spectral rape allegation, as the alleged violence preceded their involvement in the case, and Taft believed such incidents did not occur. Negative 1 point for Sir Taft, which I don't like him very much, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So during the course of their visits, investigators noted what Taft called poltergeist activity. Objects falling from shelves by themselves, strange lights, bad odors, and cold zones in the house. The researchers indicated that those occurrences decreased over the course of the visits, which I thought was a little odd, but they were joined in their visits by an acquaintance of Bither's who said she could communicate with spirits, as well as a large number of people related to the laboratory that Taft worked at, or to Taft and Gaynor in one way or another. But Taft and Gaynor, in addition to Bither herself, are the only ones who offered a description of unusual occurrences. And that's sort of contradictory to itself, and we'll get to that too.
Yeah.
Photographs of what appears to be lights are the only objective evidence gathered in the course of these visits. The images were taken by both Taft and Gaynor with an instant film Polaroid SX70 camera and a 35mm lens. The investigators indicated they encountered moving balls of lights, but what the images show takes a different appearance. A static, circular band of light, an irregular bright line, and shapeless overexposed areas. Taft and Gaynor brought an infrared camera but accidentally overexposed the film, rendering it unusable. Based on Bither's story, Taft's own observations, and the photographs, Taft concluded paranormal phenomena must have been involved, calling the case a haunting. However, reviewing the case 4 decades later, there was an investigator named Benjamin Radford. He concluded the case likely involved a distressed family, poor investigation techniques, and confirmation bias. Just some other facts that we know about Doris and her kids' living situation. Fun fact, actually, Doris didn't give up any kind of information about herself. They didn't even know her age at the time of the investigation. She refused to tell anyone. Doris grew up as a child of alcoholics in an abusive home. Eventually, she was disowned by her family after a series of altercations, and apparently those altercations were started by Doris due to, the obvious abuse she faced in her household.
Yeah.
As an adolescent, Doris participated in seances and Ouija board sessions. Keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
She had a number of failed and abusive relationships. All 4 of her children had different fathers. Doris was a single mother with 4 children, 3 sons aged 10, 13, 16, and a daughter aged 6. Doris and her kids lived in squalid conditions, with their house being condemned twice by the city. And the squalid conditions that they described were filth was everywhere. The dishes were piled up in the sink, and just a lot of... I think at one point, Taft, during the investigation, said that it was unsafe for him and everyone to be in that little house because of how unstable the house was.
He was probably a hoarder.
Probably, and I'm not really sure what condition she rented the house out in to begin with, because I'm pretty sure her and the kids lived in poverty. So,
yeah.
Actually, Barry Taft has a website, and this was him... on what he said about Doris, and then someone that Taft knew who actually interviewed Doris's sons, but we only talk about Brian, which is the middle son. So he was 13 at the time that the investigation happened. But, so from Barry Taft, Doris was very invasive and somewhat cryptic regarding her background, so much so that she refused to even tell us her age, which we knew she was older than ours, but not by how many years, and I believe Taft and Gaynor were in their mid-20s when they did this investigation. He goes on to say, had we pushed Doris hard to reveal more about her hellish past, such efforts on our part might have pushed us right off the case. Had we even attempted to secure the type of background information we currently collect, such as medical, psychological, family psychodynamics, prescribed medications, as well as recreational drugs and alcohol usage, Doris would surely have shown us the door from the outset. We had no way of knowing just how utterly disturbing of a life she really led, disowned by her family as a young teenager and cast out to fend for herself. This next bit says, Brian spoke to Javier of how his mother was banished by her family while still a teenager due to her rambunctious lifestyle and rebellious nature. How his mom started playing with Ouija boards and seances at a very early age, finally mixing such with drugs and alcohol to quell the irritable psyche within her. Brian's interview was disturbing at many levels in that he continuously contradicted himself in terms of his responses to all questions asked of him, certainly damaging his credibility as a witness. It was not until Javier interviewed Doris's other two sons that he learned that Brian was a chip off the old mother's block in terms of drinking and drugs. However, some of the statements were supported by corroborative testimony by his brothers. So Brian was a lot like his mom, which, you know, most kids in those kinds of situations grow up to be not in a good place. But I wasn't actually able to find the interview that Javier did, so I'm not really sure how credible that is to begin with. Going back to the investigation, though, so there were obviously a lot of claims of activity, and these were the claims that were made by the family. To begin with, her sons actually reported the family had always experienced some minor level of psychokinetic activity, even before moving to Culver City. And I'm not 100% sure where they moved from. I think it was still somewhere in California. The kids are said to have seen apparitions and even named one Mr. Who's It. He was very apparent in the household. Actually, shortly after Doris moved into her home, a Hispanic woman who appeared to be in her 70s knocked on the front door and told Doris that she used to live in the house and something evil lived there. As Doris tried to question her, she just turned around and left and was never seen again. I think it was about a month or two after the Hispanic lady visited her is when the activity started getting bad. Candelabras were thrown at her. A fuse box was ripped out of the wall and flew through the air towards Doris. Doris claimed she was attacked repeatedly by the entities, from mild assaults to full-on rapes. Her teenage son witnessed Doris being attacked by an unseen entity. When the son went to aid Doris during attack, something unseen flung him back with great force. During the investigation, Doris claimed she witnessed poster boards the researchers had put up with duct tape for the purpose of investigation being torn off the wall by unseen hands. Which, that one was debunked because there was the picture of Doris with, you know, the arcs above her. Mm-hmm. If you remember that one. And those poster boards were supposed to be seen in those pictures, but they were never put up. The children also saw ghosts so frequently they named one of them Mr. Who's It. I said that earlier. The oldest son reported activity intensified when he played the music of Black Sabbath. So, Doris had bruises on her legs and inner thighs from the attacks. The children also experienced encounters with the entities who bumped into them in hallways and even slapped them. The researchers' claims of activity after they came into the house, a kitchen cupboard slammed open and a skillet flew out of the cupboard as if thrown. They witnessed bright greenish yellow balls of light they called corpuscular balls of light flying around the bedroom. A few times they were able to photograph the orbs, although many attempts at photography were unsuccessful. They photographed Doris sitting on the bed with a light arc formed directly over her head. At one point, the lights in the bedroom came together and formed the upper torso of a man appearing near Doris and moving as a human would move. At the time, there were about 24 in the room who all witnessed the same thing. And that is the contradicting thing that I was talking about earlier, where Taff and Gaynor said that they were the only ones who experienced anything in the house. The research team brought in Geiger counters to measure radiation. When no activity was happening, the counters showed normal levels of background radiation. When the activity was occurring, there wasn't even any measurable background radiation that measured. Dr. Taff observed that Doris was a heavy drinker. However, when she stopped drinking, the phenomena also stopped. And they noticed the activity was always at its most intense when Doris was in the house. In 1999, Doris actually passed away, and they claimed that her age was 58. I could not find an obituary for her. I couldn't even find a record of her being alive.
That's crazy.
Yeah. There's another Doris Bither, but she was born in like 1904 or something and passed away in 1940.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I could find on her. I would assume that her kids had taken their father's last name, because I think Brian's last name was Harris. So none of them took their mom's last name, which I have a fun theory that she may have used an alias.
Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm. For the investigation, so they wouldn't know her full name.
Yeah.
I mean, it would make a lot of sense given the paranoia and stuff that she experienced.
Well, that, and she also wouldn't give her age, so why would she give her actual name?
Yeah. So, I think I calculated it, and she would have been like 30 something. I think 36 at the time of the investigation. If like, 'cause I think it was one of the sons who told investigators when she died and how old she was when she died.
Yeah.
I can't remember what she died from. I think it was some heart-related problems.
I think that's what I had seen before, that she had like heart failure or something.
Or something, yeah. Which, given her past, like, alcoholism and drug abuse, that checks out.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on the matter before I dive into my thoughts?
You know how I feel about, like, spirits and, like, ghosts and hauntings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not discrediting, but I know she had mental issues.
Mm-hmm.
And know that Taft wrote a book about this afterwards.
Yeah.
So, I think it probably was not as, like, crazy as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
And that she was having, like, psychological issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were just going along with it and embellishing stuff to that way he could have major book sales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how popular the book was. It actually is sort of hard to find unless you go to Amazon.
Yeah, and also there was a movie written about it. Had to have been embellished a lot.
It wasn't even 10 years later. It was 8, I think, when they made the movie.
Yeah.
So they had to have started filming it before the release date. Like a year or so before the release date?
I don't know.
So.
Because I don't know when his book came out.
I'm not 100% sure. I did not look at that, actually.
But yeah. Like, I know the kids, I don't know if all of them claim that they saw stuff and stuff happen to them. So I wouldn't discredit them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it is as they're saying. If they did have, like, hauntings and, stuff there. Because with her fucking with Ouija boards and seances and shit, she probably fucking cursed herself and got something attached to her that's very negative energy attached to her. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, that's your thoughts on it?
Yes.
Okay. I agree with you mostly. So my biggest thing is I hate when people try to cover up someone who has mental health issues and try to be like, oh, well, they're just haunted. And in reality, they're like, no, they just need help.
Yeah, she definitely needed help.
Yeah. So I don't 100% believe that there wasn't something going on, because mostly with the Ouija board, if you don't do it correctly, you can get things attached to you. Like, I mean,
just don't fuck with Ouija boards.
I talk to dead people sometimes, but, like, I know what I'm doing. So I don't get shit brought into the house.
We don't bring Ouija boards in the house.
That
is
too.
my number one rule.
That too. But with her, especially being on alcohol and drugs and stuff and doing the Ouija board, even if nothing came through the board, something would have been attracted to her, and she probably was haunted. Did that cause her mental health issues? No, she came with those.
Yes.
Like, her childhood was a result of, like, that's why that happened. So I believe she had some activity, but I don't believe it was as bad as it was claimed to be. Mm-hmm. There is only one thing that I could think of that would make the activity that bad, and that is, I'm not actually going to say his name because it's a bad thing to say the name, but it's the Ouija board demon, and if you know who that is, you know who that is. There's a Ouija board demon. Yeah, and he has been known to sexually assault people.
I've never heard of that.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, a succubus wouldn't have come through the...
A succubus is a female.
Is it the female? Is it the incubus?
Incubus is the male.
Okay, so an incubus or succubus, either one, whatever. That level of entity wouldn't have been able to come through the Ouija board. It's mostly lower level type things, which the Ouija board demon can cause some shit, from what I've heard. But I don't think that's the case of this. I really think she was just having a mental break, especially after having 4 kids and trying to support 4 kids as a single mom. And I think, because initially, Taft wasn't going to come in and do an investigation. He didn't believe her. And I don't remember exactly why he changed his mind.
To profit off of her, probably.
Probably. But, as he said, like in his later cases, he went through a psych eval on people. And he should have done that with her.
Yeah.
Because as he said, when Doris stopped drinking so much, everything else also stopped.
Yeah. Well, not to really... I mean, yeah, he should have done better and stuff. But think about how stupid we were when we were in our... Well, you're still in your 20s, but...
Well, okay, I don't count. I'm almost 30. I don't really count.
I mean, we were both fucking stupid in our earlier 20s.
I think a lot of it had to do with immaturity.
Yeah.
Because he was working in, like, a parapsychology lab... And I think...
Well, and just think, this happened in the 70s, correct?
Yeah, it was 1974.
Mental health was non-existent back then. Like, trying to get...
I'm pretty sure lobotomies had just stopped.
Yeah, so... And, I mean, who's to say, like, she didn't have, like, schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or something?
Something that would make her hallucinate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if she was still using substances at the time and also drinking, that would cause her to hallucinate as well.
Yeah, so think of one of my certain family members with substance problems and how they were acting.
Yeah.
And all the shit that we went through with that. So, drugs and alcohol and mental health issues do not fucking mix. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they do mix, but not into a good concoction.
Not a good way. And so as far as the children, I think it's one of 3 things or a combination of 2 things for me. One, they actually did experience paranormal activity. I think to an extent they might have.
Yeah.
But 2, and I really don't want to throw like this accusation against Doris, but given her history and given like the track rating of like people who go through abusive situations, they tend to turn into abusive people.
Yeah.
If she was abusing the kids, she could have convinced them that it was the poltergeist. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of my take on that. And also the photos too were debunked. The one where there was like an arc of light over Doris.
It could have been like an overexposure type thing or something.
It was probably a hair or a fiber. With as dirty as living conditions were and as many people that they claimed to have been in there.
Little floaties and stuff, yeah. Or a light refraction or something.
Because there was actually a photographer I saw. He went and recreated every single one of those photos.
Yeah.
And he matched them almost perfectly. And the overexposed ones where Doris claimed that the entity was in front of her. And so only her face was quote unquote overexposed. But the entire picture was.
Yeah.
It was like, no, it was just her skin was lighter than the rest of the picture. And so that faded out more. Okay. Because the walls, even like her face blended into the walls, which were also white.
Yeah.
So the picture was just way too overexposed.
Yeah.
And again, the dude who did the photography, he actually recreated that with a mannequin head who was about the same skin tone as Doris and had the same color hair.
Yeah.
So the same effect happened. Mm-hmm. Overall, I feel like the amount of paranormal activity that Doris experienced was not actually paranormal. Yeah. I feel the majority of it was mental health related.
Yeah.
And also, paired with the substance abuse and stuff. Not saying there wasn't any, but
not to the extent that's claimed.
Because, so, demonic activity I don't believe in. They have better things to do than haunt people. Most of the time when people claim it's a demon, it's a poltergeist. Mm-hmm. And poltergeists are relatively uncommon.
And man-made. In a sense.
In a sense, yeah. I mean, there's theory. I'm not going to get into it today, but there's theories around that. I may do an episode about, like, the different levels of...
hauntings.
Like, spirits and shit. Yeah. Because people in the spirit world being able to actually touch things physically and throw stuff is not very common. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of willpower from their side to do. And not many of them, just they don't want to put forth that effort to fuck with us. So, yeah. That's what I got for this week.
So what's the takeaway?
Don't play with Ouija boards. Don't talk to the dead unless you know what you're doing. Don't do drugs.
And drink responsibly.
Yes. And if you have a problem with your mental health, please get it checked out.
Exactly. So,
because mental health is important.
Very.
Yes. So.
And don't abuse your children.
I feel like that's a given.
Yeah. But we also have to remind people to not leave their fucking children in hot vehicles.
Oh my God, dude.
Because how many times have we heard in Walmart, put something important in the back seat like your purse or cell phone to not forget your child.
Something important? You mean like your kid?
Yeah. How many times have we heard that in Walmart?
We are dog parents, and I could never imagine leaving my dogs in the car. Never. I would know that they are there.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. So, anyways. We may drop a bonus episode for Christmas. Ooh. So you may get 2 episodes in one day, because Christmas is on Monday.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So you're probably going to get 2 episodes next week. We can do some Christmas hauntings and
There's plenty
Christmas.
of Christmas.
Christmas weird shit. Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas weird shit.
Yeah.
Any hoozles. Well, y'all have fun. Be safe. Be spooky.
Yep. And where to find us, everything will be in the description. So look at that.
Yep. So.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.